Keeping track of the boat's position while submerged is the most important job the Navigator performs in Wolfpack. Or at least I think so. Maybe second most important is actually tracking convoys, assuming your hydrophone gives you the bearings. Right now it doesn't have as much use as we will in the future, but eventually you'll want to know pretty accurately where you are so you don't run aground on the sea floor or have other accidents with various things that may eventually be obstacles to underwater navigation. There are a few things involved in accurately plotting this underwater course. Right now we're going to focus on using the odometer and the knowledge of the change in heading that you make to be able to plot a turn on the chart. Now, there's reasons you'd want to do this. You could plot a turn just by taking, for example, 2 lines. So we're traveling in this direction, and I'm just going to get rid of the distance because it doesn't matter in this case. You could say, alright, so that was our heading, and oh, now we've turned to 270, so, oh, okay, well, there we go, there's a turn plotted. And that's okay. It's not the most accurate it can be, though, because what you're actually doing is you're actually tracing a circle while you turn. And I will have to turn on a useful tool called reverse compass. So while you turn, you're actually tracing a circle. You're not just, going in one direction and then suddenly changing to another direction. You are following this outside of this circle, or also known as an arc. And to accurately plot this on the chart, you'll want to do this. Notice that is actually, at least in this particular long zoomed out graph that I've got here, that is actually, a 2 kilometer difference there. It may not be that crazy in practice, but it's still, that's a big difference, especially if you're dealing with stuff you could run into underwater. Note that so long as this angle is held constantly during the turn, see that you've got the rudder angle can vary between 0 and 35 degrees. As long as your helmsman holds that pretty constant throughout the turn, this will work just fine. If he is varying that, then it's not going to be a perfect circle, and this might not work as well, but we're just going to ignore that possibility right now and go for regular circle plotting. So, what can we actually do here? Well, you already saw most of it right there, but I'll go through this in kind of the simple fashion without any numbers, just to illustrate what we're doing. So I've submerged at this point here. This gray squarish marker with the arrow in it marks where you submerged, which is at about 10 meters, I believe, is where this mark shows up. If you're above 10 meters, you still count as being on the surface, and when you're below 10 meters, then you count as submerged. So we'll make a little mark here. We'll say that was where we were, and of course our heading was 140 when we submerged. So we can draw a course line at 140. I like to draw my course lines with no distance but with angle marked, because you don't know how long you're going to be on that course. So distance doesn't really matter in this case. And this is a topic for another video, but I also like to set myself up some Dead Reckoning presets of knowing where I'll be when, and I will like to make little timestamp markers at various points along this line once I've known I've traveled a certain distance. This is a good way to keep track of where you are without having to refer to the odometer all the time. So, what do we do when we turn? Well, first things first, the captain is going to order a turn, and the helm is going to acknowledge if everybody's doing what they're supposed to. You, as the navigator, need to be ready, because you need to be ready to reset the odometer. Now, there's a few things that are a little buggy right now. First off, to reset the odometer, if we're in the navigation chart like this, click this button right here that says Reset Odometer. What that'll do is that will set the left number to 0 and copy the left number over to the right value, and that will stay there until you reset again, at which point it will be replaced by the other number. There is also a reset button up here on your speedometer, which is also an odometer. Notice that it did get reset to 0, same as we did in the navigation chart. If you press this black button it will reset as well. In this case, it just copied 0 to 0 and then reset 0 to 0. This is a little buggy, both in the chart and the black button up here. Sometimes it doesn't work like it's supposed to, especially in multiplayer. We'll eventually get this fixed, I'm sure. But as it is right now, you may want to write these numbers down before you reset them and then just spam the button until it resets. That's what I've had to do. So anyway, again, we're going theoretical. We don't have any actual numbers going on here. So we've written down an odometer number. Let's just, say that it's let's say that our last fix was here at this 606, and that our odometer said that we had traveled 1 kilometer. So we'll just write, I don't know, how about 1,249 meters? This text thing is not always perfect. There we go. We've traveled 1,249 meters, and I'm just using this instead of a notepad to illustrate it. And we are currently on a heading of 140. But the captain ordered a change to a heading of 90. Alright, so this is the information we need to be able to start the plot. Now we've reset our odometer, and nothing's happening because I'm not traveling right now, but we'll just imagine here. So while the turn is progressing, while the helmsman is making the turn, and you're busy doing your job here because you've got things to do, what we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, well, this was our last known position, and our odometer said 1,249 meters since that position, because we reset our odometer like we should be. So we're going to turn on distance mode. We'll take this, and we'll say that, okay, well, here's 1235, 1246, 1257. You can zoom in to be more accurate. For the illustration purposes, I'm not going to bother. We'll just say 1235 is accurate enough at 140. Alright, so that was our distance. I'm going to erase that line. We're going to make a cross at the end of this line, and that is what will be known as our turn entry point. Alright, so we can get rid of this number because we've already plotted the turn entry point. And we technically already know that we were going 140, so we don't need this number. And to be fair, I don't even need these numbers. I'm just showing you how to do this without actual detail right now. Okay, so the turn is over. We've now determined that our odometer says it's X meters since we reset it last. I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, whatever, 250, doesn't matter for this illustration. So we know that we were turning to a heading of 90. We can punch that all into the formulas that I'll talk about later, and we can get a turn radius and a chord length. So depending on the turn radius, you see we can get varying sizes of circle. Now, that circle will need to be at a 90-degree angle in the direction of the turn. So we're turning left, so this radius line I'm getting is at a 90-degree angle to the left of our previous heading. If I was turning right, it would be at a 90-degree angle to the right, like this. We give it a 90-degree angle to the left of our previous heading at the radius that we calculated. In this case, I'm just gonna, say it's that, even though I don't have any exact numbers. Now, the next step is to take the calculated chord length, draw straight lines starting at your turn entry point, and, if we say that, well, since I said 90 degrees, it'll have to be somewhere down here. If we say that our chord length was, 600 meters exactly, we're just tracing the arc with this number, or this line, and following the distance number there. It doesn't matter what angle it is. But if it said that our chord length was 600 meters, we just trace the edge of the circle until it says 600 meters, or, damn near close enough, and mark the line, and that, where it intersects, is our turn exit point. From there, just draw a new course line in the direction of the new heading. So that's basically what our course would look like. We followed the outside arc of this circle, and now we're going 90 degrees, and the distance of this arc will be what the odometer said after we reset it at the end of the turn. There is another way to do it, one that I don't have the math for exactly, but notice that this is actually two sides of a triangle right here. You could draw the third side, and if you really wanted to, you could use the difference in angle between your initial heading and your new heading, and that would be this angle right here. And you could use that to calculate this line, and that will also give you the turn exit point. So you could do this without drawing a circle if you wanted, if you did it with the triangle method. I like the circle because it gives me this nice arc, which is actually my path. So, we'll erase all of that, because we're technically still up here, or should be, considering I haven't moved. I will mark that as my starting point. Now, all of this requires some math, as we probably have figured out. I have formulas that I will write down here. First thing, like we already determined, we need two pieces of data. We need the turn delta angle, which is the difference between the starting heading and the finishing heading. And we need that odometer reading. With both of those, you have enough data to plug some numbers into formulas and calculate what you need to do to plot your turn. The formulas are turn radius equals the turn odometer reading multiplied by 180 divided by pi, so 3.14. If you're using spreadsheets like I do, you can generally get it to a reasonable degree of accuracy. You know, I think Google Sheets uses 14 digits. Or you could just use 3.14. It'll just be a tiny bit less accurate. Pi multiplied by the turn delta angle. And that's the start. Honestly, that's the most important bit. You can guess the rest of it if you're pretty good at looking at tangential lines. But there is one other formula, and that will be for calculating the chord. Oh, and the chord, I don't know if I ever explained it. The chord is the name of that straight line that crosses the arc of the circle that shows you where the exit point is. So to calculate for the chord, you have to have already calculated the radius, but it's 2 multiplied by the radius which is then multiplied by the sine function of the delta angle divided by 2. So half of the turn delta angle is put into the sine function and then multiplied by double the turn radius, and that gives you the chord. I will say right now I am not a mathematician. These may not be as they actually would be if you were a proper mathematician. However, I have done some experimentation and they certainly seem to work. And this is really all you need to do these plotting. I have a spreadsheet. I will show that off here if I can. Here it is. Of course, it minimized the game on me. So this is actually part of a larger spreadsheet, but this is the part that matters, is the turn calculator. All you do is you take your initial heading, and you take your new heading, the ordered heading, and you take what the odometer says and you punch some numbers in. So if I made a turn from 0, 0, 0 to 9, 0, and it took us 100 meters in the turn, then the arc length should match the odometer. That's just, it is doing math off of it, but if they're not the same, then you maybe messed up a number somewhere. I don't know how you would have done that. You see that the radius of the circle would be 63.66 meters, and the chord length would be 90.03 meters. And you can do this with any of these numbers. I've got it set up in my spreadsheet so that the turn angle is always calculated properly, regardless of if it's a right or left turn. And you'll always get the numbers you need. So, let's do some actual turns and see how close we can get. This may be slightly off because I have, I stopped the boat and I submerged to, was this 37 meters? Without any forward assistance or anything, so it's very possible that we are slightly off of our marker already. But we can definitely do some testing here and see what we can get. So we are at 140.5. If you haven't ever looked at these before, notice that the center of the compass is in fact the ones digit of the heading that you're at. So I've made my mark, did that before. I've reset the odometer. We're just going to cruise here. So we've got electric engines on. Let's go half speed ahead. And I'll come back to you once we've gone a significant enough distance to make the math work without, being super close to our starting point. We'll say that the captain decided to order us to move from 140 degrees to, well, say, 90, like we did earlier. We'll still continue at a head half, which is, about 4.5 knots, just under. And this is going to be slightly off simply because I'm both running the rudder and hitting the odometer, so we're going to be a few meters ahead of where we actually were when I started the turn. But we're going from 140 to 90. And I'm resetting the odometer now. So we know that we now have 288 meters, or probably closer to 280, but we'll just say it's 288. So first things first, going from 140 to 90, and we had 288 meters from our starting point. So if I take a distance marked turn and we take... Actually, I'm going to stop the helm first because we need to. In fact, I've almost overshot here. We're going to go back to our turn. Alright, that's close enough. Now we reset the odometer again. And we went 199 meters in that turn. Or 99, never mind. Not 199, the odometer readout is slightly difficult when it's at the point of ticking over. No, it was 99 meters in that turn. So once again, we will write that down. meters. So we went 288 meters on 140. Zoom in here because it's not that far. And this is why you have a dedicated navigator doing this job, because he can sit here and do these precise little drawings while the helmsman is actually doing the helm stuff. So we'll just let us keep going at 4.5 knots on a 90 heading. And notice that the odometer is ticking up. That's perfectly fine. That'll actually help us. So now, this is our entry point. This is where we were when we started the turn, or damn near close at least. So then we traveled 99 meters during that turn. So what do we got here? Alright, this is where the formulas come in, and this is where we're going to use my spreadsheet, which I will link in the description. Note that you will have to make your own copy of this if you want to use it, because it is locked down to just me, since you're going to be editing numbers. So we've got 140, 90, and 99. So we'll take the spreadsheet here. Our initial heading was 140. Our new heading is 90. Oh, look at that. I already had that in there. And we traveled 99 meters. All right. Well, we've got all the numbers we need now. We've got a turn radius of 113.45 meters. So, again, you need a circle tool, and you need reverse compass to be turned on. And we know that we turned left. And that was 113.45. Yes, it was. So we will draw a circle with a radius of 113.45, or basically 113, at a 90-degree angle to the left of where we entered the turn, or as close as we can get it. Alright, so there's our turn arc. Now we turned to 90 degrees, so I can already see it's going to be, it's going to be something like that. But we've got the chord, so let's do it more accurately. The chord length was 95.89 meters. This is a small turn. It gets a lot more intricate when you're actually doing large turns. So 95.89. We just see, okay, that's 40, 45, 50. We're just tracing the outside of the circle, and we see, oh, 95, 96, because it's 95.89, right? 96. Alright, well that's going to be as close as we can basically get to our turn exit point. And now, we just get rid of the distance and draw ourselves a new course line on 9-0. There's one turn plotted. We've traveled just under 500 meters. Let's start another turn. Let's make this one be a lot bigger. Let's go from 9-0 to... oh, let's see here. How about 2-4-0? Almost a complete 180. Not quite, but getting there. So 9-0 to 2-4-0. Again, I'm going to write this stuff down because the odometers don't work quite right. And if I was doing this without having to explain it and without having to run over to the helm myself, I would be writing this down on a sheet of paper, just so I have it handy. So we're going from 9-0 to 2-4-0. Once again, we will start the turn. It's going to be a right turn this time. We'll reset the odometer. Alright, so we traveled 577 meters on this course right here. Here's another thing I like to do. Instead of drawing on my course line to have lines on top of each other, I like to draw a little right angle line, and I make my course measurements off of that instead. So 577 meters is... that will be close enough for government work. And then we just say that, okay, well, this is above where we measured our line, so that's our entry point right there. Now, we are currently at a heading of 158 and turning right still, but we are still nowhere near our 240 that we're looking for. Odometer is counting up. We are getting a significant amount of distance in this turn. This is why you want to do the circle method or something similar, because otherwise you're going to be off. This is something I've actually done some measuring on, and the turn rate while underwater is definitely... it varies. It seems like when you're on the surface, you turn at the same number of degrees per second, regardless of what speed you're going. But underwater, dead slow is like half a degree per second, and great speed and full speed are both like 1.6 degrees per second, and half and slow are somewhere in the middle. Anyway, we are getting near our turn now. 230. We will prepare to slow us down here on the turn. Alright, close enough. Reset the odometer. 269 meters in that turn, and now we are going in a straight line on 240. So, 269. What we can do now is we can plug this into the formula. So 90, 240, 269. Alright, so we have a turn radius of 102.75 and a chord length of 198.5. So 102.75, so 103 meters on the radius, and that is a right turn. Again, reverse compass enabled. Right turn means 90 degrees to the right, and what was that again? 103. Usually I have this on my other monitor so I don't have to keep alt tabbing. So 103 meters, 90 degrees to the right. And the chord length, in this case, you're going to have to think about what kind of arc you traced here. You know, it's not like you went this way around the turn and had the chord length be the right length. You went this way around the turn and had the chord length be the right length, because there may be two answers. Still, chord length here is 198.5. So we will trace the circle until we find 198.5. Right there. We're close enough. So that is going to be our exit point, and that sure seems to match up to my 240 that I'd like to see here. Because what you're looking for is something that is a tangential line, meaning that it only touches the circle at one point. just gets, you know, super, super close otherwise. Even though it looks like it's touching, it isn't actually. That is a tangential line right there. So we are now traced that curve and went to 240. I mean, notice that this right here, that if we had just drawn a line at 240 right here, well, the distance we'd be off would be the length of the chord, or 198 meters. That's a decent number of meters if you're about to run aground. So, let's see here. If I really wanted to, I could probably use a turn planning system to try and figure out how to bring us back to our starting point, but I'm not going to bother with that right now. Because of the varied turn rates, it does make it a little difficult to figure that out. We'll just do one more left turn. We will do, how about a left turn to 160. So, once again, we're going to start the turn and then reset the odometer. Left turn to 160. I'm going to write these down first, as I usually do. Although, you don't necessarily need to write them down here, because you can see the angles on the lines as long as you have that stuff turned on. But, I'll write it down anyway. 240 to 160. Left turn, full rudder. And we are going to reset the odometer. 477 meters. Alright, once again, we'll do it my way, and this time I'm not even going to draw the extra line like I do, because I just eyeball it a lot. But it was 477 meters at 240. Oh, I had it. There we go, 477 meters. And we make a cross. Or a timestamp if you wanted. The problem is the timestamps are drawn at the time on the clock when you click. So you can't really use them for past measurements. Anyway, we are just about 20 degrees off, so let's go and get ready to stop the helm. 160 is... close enough. Reset the odometer. We had 144.5. We'll just call that 145. So, that was 145 in the turn. Once again, over to the spreadsheet, 240, 160, 145. Alright, our turn radius was 103.85 meters. And that was to the left, 103.85. Once again, this is exactly the same as every other time. 103.85. 90 degrees to the left. As close as we can get it. And the further you're zoomed in, the more accurate this will be. And the chord was 133.51. So we trace it along, 137, 133. That is probably good enough. And a course of 160. And of course you can always erase lines if you would like them to be cleaner later. For illustration purposes, I'm just leaving these here for now. Still, we should be on a course of this right now. And now it's basically time for the moment of truth. Let's stop the U-boat. There are a few ways to stop things. This isn't a helmsman's course, though, so I'm not going to bother going into them. I'll just stop it, and we'll wait for it to stop. Once the odometer stops ticking up, we'll know that we've stopped pretty well completely, which isn't quite realistic, but good enough for the game. As we tick on down here, double check our chart again, make sure everything looks kosher. And you can notice as I've zoomed in, I drew this cross when I was actually, you know, fairly well zoomed out. And if we draw a distance line here, we'll notice I was actually 15 meters off of where the game says that we actually submerged. So you got to keep those things in mind. If you really want things to be accurate, you got to be zoomed in. And as far as you can go sometimes, which can be a pain when dealing with large distances. Alright, still not stopped, still going 1.1 knots. I see we actually have ascended a couple of degrees. I must not have enough water in the negative tank, or a couple of meters. Not enough to matter for our calculations, however. We're still far enough underwater that the chart doesn't think we're above water. Alright, there we go. We just hit 0. 282 meters, and in most cases I would reset here. We don't have to because we aren't moving at all. But 282 meters is how far we've traveled on 160 from our exit point. So, 160, 282. Alright, if our calculations are correct, we should rise to the surface round this X, or this cross. May not be dead nuts on, because there are errors, especially when you're not zoomed in all the way. But it should be somewhere around this point, because we are not traveling at any given speed right now. Alright, we are going to surface the boat. There are a lot of procedures you would normally do in this situation, and you also normally wouldn't do it just with the ballast tanks, but that's what I'm going to do to attempt to prevent us from drifting at all. So we'll just blow some ballast water. If I get us down to 60 meters cubed, it should get us up to the surface. Yes, we are rising, and moderately quickly for not having any speed or dive plane action. We'll bring her back once we're back at the surface here. Alright, the boat should count as surface now. Won't bother with our ballast because that doesn't matter at the moment. What do we think? Oh, look at that. Our cross is pretty close to where the boat actually says it is right now. Let's give it a good measurement just to see what our error was. We were 18 meters off, 17 even. Not that much. So this works. It works pretty well, especially if you were to think that, you know, if you just did it based on the direction that you wanted to turn, you know, we'd have, let's see if we can do some ratios here. Something like that at 90, and then we would have plotted the next turn would have been to 240 from there, and be something like this. I'm not doing this mathematically, I'm just guessing, but this is basically what I would guess. And then we go to 160, you know, from here. And looking at the difference, I'm looking at the difference between the entry and exit points, which would mean that it would estimate that we were somewhere like up here, I think. You know, and if we estimated that we were somewhere up there, compared to our axle position, that's, you know, 170 meters, which, again, good enough for government work? Well, it is right now. It may not be once we get to a point of actually having the ability to run into things. If we ever get that mission in Scotland or whatever it is, you know, where you're dealing with shallow bays and whatnot, it might be a little more complicated. Still, less than 20 meters off, I call that a successful day, and that is how you do circle navigation. Not sure if video was the right format for it, but it definitely is good for showing off the tools. So any questions, you sure feel free to ask them in the Discord or in the comments. I'll answer what I can. And I can also give you the formulas. I'll have the spreadsheet linked in the description. You'll just have to go to, I'll show you even, File in Google Sheets and make a copy to make a copy for yourself. And if you do that, then you will be able to change the numbers at will, as well as, you know, mess with the formulas if you really wanted to. Still, thanks for watching. We'll do another one sometime.